Cincinnati's ready for the Big 12. It was time for them.
I am fired up.
It's a blessing to be able to be in this league with y'all, putting on for UC.
Cincinnati, a basketball school.
And there he goes. Touchdown, Bearcats!
Brookwamba again, another slam inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GoBeercats podcast. I'm Brandon. We're missing Darin right now, but he'll be with us shortly. Of course, the GoBeercats podcast is part of the Catskeller Social Club and a member of the College Huddle community. If you're watching on YouTube here, you will see the guy on the screen next to me is definitely not Darin, but he is a diehard Bearcat through and through. He is the previous owner of Bearcat Journal, which every Bearcats fan knows about. He is very easy to find on Twitter. He is Tim Adams, and he might be the authority on Bearcats baseball this year. Tim, welcome into the show.
Well, thanks. Like I told you before, I was very surprised that you were able to find me out in the weeds of Twitter or X, whatever you call it these days.
Oh, it was like I said, if Darin and I would try to concentrate more on baseball this year, give us something to talk about after the big ones of football and basketball. And the first year in the Big 12 certainly gave us a lot to talk about in terms of every sport, not just basketball or football. I think women's basketball had a kind of surpassed expectations year one under Coach Merriweather, and I think maybe here with the Diamond Bearcats, if you call them, might have surpassed some expectations as well. So we want to get into all of that. This is like this baseball season wrap up. But as I told you when I asked you to join the show, Tim, this is the GoBeercats podcast. So we do like to drink a beer while we talk. And of course, I see right before I can even get the question out, I see you got a Cincy Lights and a Cincy Reigns koozie there for our non-YouTubers. Good stuff. It's hard to beat a Cincy Light.
Right. It is, and the fact that they're a local company and supports the Bearcats. When I learned that, drinking beer was part of the process here, I don't drink a lot of beer, but I have some here for guests because why not? And I thought there's only one beer to drink on this show. It's got to be Cincy Light. So it's actually good too.
It is good. It's a great beer. I love that it supports our NIL. Tim, actually, before I'm drinking something from that place in the middle of the state from Columbus Brewing, which I know it's not on brand here, but their Bodhi double IPA is as solid of an IPA as it gets. It's a bigger beer as well, over 8%. So I'll be sipping on that as we talk about the Bearcats here. But a funny story about Cincy Light. I work at the Delhi Liquor Store, which is one of our sponsors of our show. And last week we had a private party. It's of course here on the west side in Delhi, and I have not ran into too many Xavier fans over here on the west side. I think they all reside in the Norwood Hyde Park area. But last weekend, I found them all on all of the west side Xavier fans. Came to my bar for a private party, and their first question is, "What's the lightest beer that you have on tap?" And I, with a smile, said, "Cincy Light." So there's a room full of Xavier fans drinking Cincy Light at the bar, and it made my evening. So
did any of them object to that at all, or not?
One girl was like, "Oh, we kind of boycott Cincy Light since it helps UC." And I was like, well, we have this nice IPA or stout or, the sour beer on tap as well. She's like, just give me the Cincy Light. I was like, that's a win. That's a win. We'll take it.
Any money's good money.
Absolutely. 100%. So I love that you get that aspect of Cincy Light as well. So good stuff. But Tim, I want to jump into baseball here as we're waiting on Darin. He at the beginning of the year, he put together what I call the Bearcat Baseball Bible, and it was filled with stats and sort of expectations, the whole roster, whether guys hit left or right, or as he put that together, I think we were picked dead last in the Big 12. Not a lot of people gave us any sort of chance. So I was wondering for you, from your perspective, what was your realistic expectations for the Diamond Bearcats here in year one under Bischel?
Well, I had covered the Bearcats under Brian Cleary. I had done it as well under Ty Neal, and I had 1 year with even Scott Guggens. So I was pretty familiar with the American. In fact, there were some years under Ty Neal where the American was actually had a higher RPI than the Big 12 did. So I felt like with Coach Bischel and being the Ohio University graduate, I kind of know the MAC and kind of like the MAC. And when they brought in some MAC guys, I wasn't somebody thinking this is bad. You know, the kids they brought in were first team, all MAC and second team. And there's a lot of good players in the MAC, and several other kids from Central Michigan came in as well. So I wasn't quite sure how high they would be, but I didn't feel like they would be last. And I felt like they would be able to compete. And I was worried, like everybody else, about the pitching staff, because everything in college baseball or any level of baseball, it starts and ends with your pitching. So that was my biggest concern. Were they going to have enough arms? And I think they actually got better, and the stats would show they got better as the season went on with the pitching staff. And I give Josh Reynolds, the pitching coach, a lot of credit for that. And I know that some of those pitchers do as well. So I was hopeful, and I felt like they'd be competitive. I never dreamed they'd be as competitive as they proved to be. I didn't think they'd be in the conversation. I mean, I was covering the 2008 Bearcat team, which was a terrific team that won 39 games, lost in the Big East final to Louisville, who had 40 or 41 wins. And that team went on to go, that Louisville team went on to go to the NCAA playoffs, and UC did not get an invitation with 39. So just to be in the at-large conversation was something brand new for me as a guy that reported on UC and followed UC baseball all these years.
I think, UC fans are probably more familiar with the way that the basketball selection gets done, and sort of, there's a little bit of politicking. There's, of course, in the Big 12 this year, we didn't necessarily have to have a tough out-of-conference schedule. But can you tell, because the Bearcats, they said that we were one of the last 4 out of the tournament this year. What sort of, other than, I'm sure they obviously look at wins and losses, and we've learned a little bit about RPI here in baseball through, learning more, our journey to learn more baseball this year. What can you tell me or tell the listeners about that selection process that happened earlier today?
Well, what we saw earlier today was a contradiction to what we've seen in the past. I mean, last year, Kansas State did not get into the tournament with a 55 RPI, and that's why they went out and played Clemson and Tennessee and took the trips there because they wanted to have a tougher schedule. And having their AD on the committee probably didn't help them or didn't hurt them this year in getting in there. So we saw a real deviation from what the process had been. It had been more metric driven than some of the other ones, a little less mystery. And as a UC baseball fan that's followed this through years, because even if the Bearcats aren't in it, I've been to the College World Series. I love watching it. And this was the first time that there was a shroud of mystery on how some teams got in there. I mean, 55 for Indiana was one of the highest maybe ever RPIs that we've seen. And oddly enough, I believe their AD was also on the committee. Now, I'm not going to say that anybody was messing, being unscrupulous and all this, but I think in some ways, when you've got these committees, there needs to be, I'd like to see it be added where the committee members have a chance to have someone from outside come in and plead the case of some teams that they want to hear, because I can't think I can count on an AD who's got a full-time job to know exactly what the strong points are of every team on that bubble. So
Right.
I'd want someone, just like if it was a civil lawsuit, you get representation and have someone come in there that maybe the committee had never brought up or didn't know, that someone who's a UC person can give, here are our strong suits. And I think that would help the process and maybe make it a little fairer for everyone as well.
Where do you sort of like switching it up here just for a second with the broader sense of the sport of college baseball? There's a lot of games on ESPN Plus. There, the selection show that we were talking about, that was at noon on a Monday. But it seems like, especially in the Big 12, there is a lot of attention on baseball. Cincinnati is a well-known baseball town, although that attention is usually focused on the Reds until about the month of May, when the wheels fall off, like it did this year. But people will show up to UC to watch baseball. I think they set several records within the last season or so. How much room do you think that the sport, the game of college baseball, has to grow in this current landscape?
I think it can grow by leaps and bounds. And one, you talk about the Big 12 and some of the popularity of those schools. So many of those schools are on an island. There's no professional team. So the fans, that's their professional team. And in the Big 12, I think they've had a representative in the College World Series for like 20 plus years. So that also makes it popular among the other fans. And I'm more interested in Big 12 games, and I'll sit and watch Big 12 games. And I think the ESPN Plus platform that televised so many games was really paid off in spades, because so of the people that follow me, so many of them say, I never really paid much attention to it. I'm just a small voice in the wind that can put out a few sentences and a tweet. But when they can follow along the game with me and we can converse, and that's what I saw more this year than ever before, because I'm pretty chatty during the game, and I had more people. Sometimes when I covered the UC team, I felt like I was talking to myself because it was just me. But now more people are involved, and more people said, I'm really interested in playing or going down and seeing games. And I also think the style of play that they had, Coach Bischel did an outstanding job. I love that style of baseball. It seems to incorporate some fast pitch softball concepts. They do so many things. They're one of the better bunting teams that I've seen. They've got good team speed. They try to use it, double stealing. You've got to stay awake. And I think the one series that was so obvious was West Virginia, because West Virginia wanted to take the UC running game out of the mix. So their pitchers probably threw 25 or 30 balls to the bases to try to keep our runners safe. And they had Derek Clark, who's one of the best pitchers in the Big 12, and he had his worst outing. And I think anytime you can get someone to think about something else they're not used to thinking about, you're in control. And I think they did that to Clark that day, and they ended up beating one of the best pitchers. They actually beat several of the top pitchers in the Big 12 this year.
So let's kind of like to dive into the team here. A 32-win team. I think they won 18. They went 18-8 at home, which I think by the time they were playing Oklahoma for the last series of the season, I think it was sort of a place other teams kind of looked at side-eyed, like, man, are we going to make it out of Cincinnati with a win, let alone a series win? So, like, can you speak to that difference? Because we heard a lot about that this year, the way that Bischel coached the game and the aggressiveness that he brought to the program. Can you give us some examples as to what that looked like compared to maybe years past?
Well, Googs was a guy that would play small ball, and that was the term that they always used to bunt people over. And the metrics say they want to turn baseball into a home run strikeout. You want hitters that can hit it out. It's easier to hit a ball out and get 3 runs than to try to score 3 runs without a home run. I don't believe all those things, and I think that we saw a lot of teams in the Big 12 that also played a brand different than the metrics say about the slugging and the home run. And with Bischel, he'll do the unexpected. he'll do things that you maybe haven't seen since the 7th or 8th grade, like getting your runner hung up between first and second and trying to get your runner from third to score. And everybody says, well, the higher you go in baseball, those tricks don't work anymore. Well, you know what? They do, because no one does them anymore. So no one's prepared. They aren't prepared. And it's like when you see the academies play football with their brand of, option football. It works for them because people have 4 days to prepare for that offense, and it's hard to prepare for that in 4 days. And I just think Bischel, he's got his notebook there. So, I mean, every time you see him, he's got his little notes, and he's a sharp guy. And I think if you're a player, wouldn't you want to play in that kind of system? I mean, they probably rotated about 15 kids among their 8-9 position plays. And so you're going to get in there. You're going to get a chance to play. You're going to get a chance to run. You're going to have fun, I think, playing that kind of ball.
I'm anxious to hear your thoughts on this part, because when like I said, Darin put together that baseball Bible, it was pretty apparent, very soon that pitching was going to be an issue for UC because they were so young. Whether they, no matter the talent or the skill or whatever it may be, if you're still a freshman or a sophomore pitching in this league, you're going to have some rough nights. Is this? Do you see them trying to remedy that just by throwing the guys out there? They have a year under their belt. We'll run it back with them, or do you expect them to maybe get the portal and bring in some experienced pitching?
That is a really great question. And what we're seeing in college baseball, and we saw in the Big 12, so many of the better pitchers had transferred in like Derek Clark, I mentioned him at West Virginia. He transferred in from Northwood, the place where Coach Bischel used to even coach at. And Braden Davis, the ace of Oklahoma, he came from Sam Houston State. So we're seeing some of these better arms from these smaller schools are going to the Power 5 schools. And so many of the rotations in the Big 12, the weekend rotations, had 1, 2, or even 3 junior college arms or guys that are transferring in for their junior or senior year. So you're getting a more mature kid than the freshman. But I'll throw a stat at you right now that may shock some people, because UC had 4 freshman pitchers. Nate the Great Taylor, he would be one of them. Now, he threw 70 innings, 72 innings. I think he had 70 strikeouts. So he's about 1-to-1 on strikeouts, which is, you love that. Then you got Mr. Incognito. He's also a great dancer, Carson March. He came out of Moeller. He never even started, I don't think, there. He was more of a relief guy. They didn't expect much out of him. He had a 52 strikeout to 40 innings. So he was over a 1-to-1. Then the 2 other freshmen didn't pitch as much. Drew Erdman, but he also had 16 strikeouts to 14 innings. A big kid that throws it hard in the low 90s already. And then Bradley Coulter, who I think they had to shelf him those last 3 weeks. He's from Kentucky. And he also had more strikeouts than he had innings pitched. So those are metrics that a lot of you want in these guys. Now, they didn't have quite enough depth, because at the end of the year, you saw that they lost Garula. He wasn't able to pitch in the tournament game. As I mentioned, Coulter didn't seem ready. He hadn't pitched. And a really good reliever, Ryan Insko, who transferred in from Central Michigan. He didn't appear to be available either the last part of the season. So you're going to lose some guys along the way. And I think there's got to be a happy medium between there. If you're going to bring in a transfer guy, you've got to see him as a weekend starter, I think. Otherwise, just stay with your young guys. And they've got 8 pitchers coming in, 8 freshman pitchers coming in. 2 are left-handed, which they need lefties to give some options strategically for Coach Bischel. So they got 17 total kids committed right now. And I think and I heard Bischel, either heard or read, he said we might bring in another 4 or 5 guys from the transfer portal. But I think they could be selective with some of those guys. And they've got some position needs, because some guys are going to have already graduated. And we don't know what's going to happen with Josh Cross. Will he get drafted? He probably will. Will that be enough money? Where will they slot him pay-wise? So they got some things also to look at. Catching would be a position that they're going to have to look at. So we'll see how he does it. But I think they're going to, right now, they've got all freshmen, no JUCOs, no transfers. 17 coming in.
Off of that, we'll transition to recruiting here. That was sort of some down the line questions, but a segue is a segue. From what you gather, is Bischel seem to be more of a build through recruitment than the transfer portal? I mean, with that many guys coming in the freshman class, it seems like he would be that type of guy.
I think he's had to be, because where he's been, he's had Central Michigan isn't going to be all that attractive for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So he's had to develop his guys, and that's where now that he's here and in the Big 12 and in a nice place, that ballpark. I had a parent tell me this year, one of the reasons why his son came to UC was because he liked the fact that the ballpark was right in the middle of the campus. Mm-hmm. You're part of the life of the university, and so I think they've got, and it's a nice ballpark. So I think they've got those things going for him. I don't think he had those kinds of facilities at Central Michigan, although I've never been there. So I think he's going to transition too. He's learning along the way on what he needs to do and how he needs to do it. So I look forward to I hope it'll always be high school guys that they'll want to develop and get kids with good enough arms and good attitudes, because that was another big part of the success of this team. Was we saw in football after 1 year, we heard about how horrible the locker room experience was, and guys were being told to leave and all that stuff. Well, you had 13 kids that walked on senior day, and some of them were contributors, some big contributors, but those kids handled it like mature adults. I mean, they handled it way better than I would have handled it at the age of 25, because you're competitive. You got those juices. Yeah. And they held that locker room together. And Coach Bischel, at the end of that tournament last week, he brought out 3 of those guys because he wanted to try to show his appreciation to them. And I thought that was really a nice thing for him to do, because those kids deserved it.
Tim, as Darin makes his appearance on the show, Darin, welcome in, good sir.
Thank you. Hello, Tim.
Darin, we're just going to seamlessly transition you in here. We've talked about some bigger picture things with the game of college baseball in general. We've talked about Bischel's sort of recruiting, build the program process. And my next question for Tim, as we just got done talking about recruiting, really, you mentioned catching as a sort of a need or something to address through recruiting. Would you say that's the next issue outside of pitching, or is there something else that's higher up on the priority list?
They've got a young kid, Noah Wicks. They've got a former Elder catcher that's also on their team that didn't get a lot of play this year. The thing is, you can't count a guy out because you haven't seen him. And Josh Hegeman certainly proved that to everybody in the last 2. Guy that never had a hit for 2 years, and he hits the biggest home run in UC baseball history, in my opinion, to basically end that game down. There was the shot heard around Clifton that night. And Darin, by the way, happy birthday. I heard it was your birthday yesterday, so happy birthday.
Thank you.
Got to have depth in catching. And if Cross leaves, and by way of the MLB draft, and then Jones is going to be gone, Alex Jones, who really played some terrific ball for him as well. They're going to have to find at least 2 catchers. They got to have 2 guys they're comfortable with. And I think the defense at first base needs to improve. And that's not to take any real shot at anybody, but there are sometimes things you have to improve on in the offseason. And they need some, my feeling on first base is you need to catch 100% of the balls that get you in the air, and you got to get a glove on at least 75 of the other ones, because you got to help people out by digging it out. And, one of their third baseman, Carrington Cross, who's got some Pete Rose in him. He plays baseball, not like Ozzie Smith. It's not ballet out there. It's not smooth. It's a bull in a china shop. There's a lot of jumping and falling and off-balance stuff, but you got to be able to help him out sometimes. And he had a few throwing errors, that I thought a really good first baseman probably gets. And he's just one of my favorite players too, because he just plays so doggone hard every day. And that was a trademark of this Bischel team too. But Cross had it before Bischel even got here. It's just part of who he is.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Cross had that 3-run shot against Texas in the
Yeah.
tournament. Yeah, that
It was
was
a rip. And I'll tell you what, the night before when they lost this to Central Florida, if he hits that, he crushed another ball, but it's 407 feet to dead center field. And his ball probably went 400. They would have won that game. And if they win that game, I think they're in the tournament, because then they had the head-to-head over UCF. They would have had 3 out of 4 wins. Their RPI would have gone up. And maybe the best thing would have been they wouldn't have had to play on Wednesday, because Texas Tech beat Texas. So that meant that UCF got Wednesday off and could hold their pitching back, and UC's chances of getting another win would have been really excellent at that point. So that was a big one, a big fish that got off the hook for them. And if Cross had hit that ball at either other angle, I think it would have gone out. Plus, they're playing in a dome, and when it's warm like this, balls don't carry in domes like they do at Charlotte at the ACC tournament. They were hitting 7 home runs a game in Charlotte. The ball takes off when it gets hot.
Yeah, no, I mentioned that when we were watching live. I saw that just fall to him. I'm like, that carries during regular season play.
Yeah.
Any other ballpark that carries.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean,
there's the old saying, it would have been out of any park but Yellowstone. And that's it would have been out of any college baseball park that wasn't out in Arlington.
Yeah. I'd say also, I mean, another potential drop moment, if it wasn't UCF in the tournament, maybe that UConn game, if it doesn't get called, and maybe if you take another one against Xavier, that definitely helps you out a little bit.
Yeah, the UConn game was, to me, still hard to understand, because it was the bottom of the 5th. UConn was up 1-0, and I understand Jim. I love Jim Penders. I've seen his teams come into Cincinnati. I like the way he coaches. He's a very clever coach. He did what his job was. He went out there and said, the ball's wet, my guy can't throw it over the plate. So I'm fine with taking a delay. But the reason why UC has an all-turf field is especially for days like that. And you're so close to such a big game. It stopped raining. I live in Cincinnati. It stopped raining multiple times in that afternoon. That game started at 11 a.m. He didn't call it because of travel. UConn was going to Butler. That's a 1.5, 2-hour drive at tops, even on a bus. So they had plenty of time. So I don't know, other than the fact these were big East umpires, and Jim Penders had them on speed dial during that 30-minute delay. And I hate to say that, but that game kind of makes me mad that game wasn't. They didn't even try. 30 minutes isn't really trying to get a game in. So that was a real disappointing loss right there. Or not a loss, no game. It was no game.
There was definitely a bit of what I like to call soccer gamership right there.
Yeah.
He was rotating his pitchers a lot too, kind of, getting the delays in where he could, obviously going to the ref each chance he could get. That's probably the closest I could relate that to in any other sport, really. So yeah, that one definitely hurt.
And it was a big game because they were both bubble teams. Both of them needed to win, and he's better to get at. In Indiana, we had the game canceled, but it was so different because Indiana called the game hours before the game was going to be played, and Indiana needed the game just as much as UC did. I mean, they're very, very fortunate that they got into the NCAA tournament. They're the 3rd team to get in from the Big Ten, which is a great year for the Big Ten.
Tim, as we're try to be respectful of your time here, I think we got I want to at least ask you one more baseball question and one more sort of general UC question, and then if you want to talk about anything else outside of baseball or things to look out for, we will certainly do that. But as Darin and I really tried to learn as much as we could about UC baseball this year, the need or the love of having a rival, of course, makes college sports what it is. And as we're in this new conference, it's always the conversation is who's going to be our next rival in this or that. And I want to know your opinion after one season in the Big 12. Is there an early candidate for a baseball rival for the Bearcats?
For me, no. For most of the UC fandom, UCF. For some reason, UCF fans and UC fans do not. I don't know how it happened, but they seem to really dislike each other for whatever reason. So I would put them in there. For me, the other thing would be West Virginia, but that's mostly football. That's one state I don't even like to walk in. I took my wife to a UC West Virginia game. She was afraid to go to the restroom by herself. And it was just a nasty experience. The total different of when we went to Army. And boy, you got the cream of the crop there. That was one of the best experiences ever. So I don't know, the Oklahoma game, there was a lot of chipping going on there. Of course, they're leaving the conference, but that had the makings of a bloodbath down the road, I thought, if they had stayed in. So it's hard to say, two teams don't get along or whatever. And, but UCF would be the one that I think most Bearcat fans would say they just don't like those guys.
Just across the board. Darren, what about you? Now that the season's over, do you have an official vote? You can probably guess who my vote is.
UCF is easy. To answer Tim's question, the internet, basically, social media age, just jawing back and forth online. That's where a lot of the talk gets done. Oklahoma fans were talking mad disrespect to us at the end of those first two games, and I was like, hold on, we're not those type of fans yet in baseball. You're not going to catch any fish with that baby there. So, but yeah, there's definitely seemed like there was something there. Who bunted against us?
Kansas.
Kansas
is my answer. Bunts to break up a no-hitter against us. Kansas they're on my shit list in baseball for sure.
See, that the buntings doesn't bother me. It's just a part of baseball, and so but I know a lot of fans feel exactly like you, Brandon. They feel like if you're going to break it up, you got to do it hitting the bunt up, an actual single and not bunting the ball. So I get where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm anxious to see these rivalries bud more across all sports. Tim, the last question I have here for you, and maybe Darren has one after this. I'll throw it to him after this. But I would like to know if you could add one sport that UC does not currently have, what would you add to the university?
Softball. Women's softball.
That would fit in well in the Big 12 for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Oklahoma's been one of the top tier teams, and Cincinnati area was late to get into the girls softball. I've coached a lot of women's softball, and it's a great game to watch, and I think it would be a nice thing to add. I just don't know if they've got a place where they could put it. And I think it helps when you've got the field or the arena on the campus, and I don't know how you shoehorn one of those in there, but I'd love to see softball.
Yeah, that was going to be my, my suggestion there. Just a traveling partner for baseball there. Maybe once the indoor practice facility is done, see if they want to give up that half field there and really squeeze it in. There's potential there. But maybe bring the soccer program back for the men's side just to kind of restore what's recently been lost. Probably my second option on that.
Tim, anything else that we as fans or Bearcats diehards or anything? Let me put it to you this way: anything, and what are you looking forward to in the future the most, or is there something that you'd like to get other people on board with?
Well, I'm right now really all in on UC baseball. I did football for 10 years through Antonio, well, even some of Minter's years, but I saw more practices than I ever want to see in my life, so I don't ever want to cover that again. But baseball, I just want to give Bearcat fans a little bit of a history lesson on baseball, and that is in 2008 when I mentioned UC had 39 wins. Louisville, which has been to 5 College World Series since then, well, actually the first 2008. Prior to 2008, they made one NCAA baseball appearance, one. And that was in 2002. They hire their coach, and he goes to the College World Series in year 1. And then they've been to 12 out of 13 years to the NCAA baseball tournament up to COVID, and 5 World Series in that particular time period, that 13-year period. They haven't been as good lately, and they didn't make the playoffs again this year. They've only made it, I think, 1 out of the last 5 years. But I think it shows how quickly you can rise and how quickly you can fall in college baseball, even if you've got a good manager and a good program. So I know people look at me. I had some guy get after me a little bit on X by saying, I gave UC fans false hope by saying they could make the tournament. Well, as it turned out, they damn near made the tournament, and you can get there, and they almost did. And I want people to understand that they're going to need some help They're going to need some help from the fans, both in enthusiasm and in money. And I hope fans are willing to do that because it's a cheap place to have a lot of fun to go down to UC baseball. And it, like Brandon, you mentioned before, it's a great way to fill in the rest of the year after basketball season's over. So it can happen here. You just got to believe. And my feeling is either help out or get out of the way, because I think if we keep Coach Bischel here, and I think we will, I think big things are ahead. One other parting word here. Before you had a coach selling a vision. He said, he's saying, look what I did at Central Michigan. And there were a lot of skeptics. There were people that didn't even think he was qualified for this job. They wanted people from other parts of the country or someone with a bigger name. He's not selling a vision anymore. He showed he can compete in the Big 12. So now you're selling a reality to the local kids. And I think that could make a difference too.
Good stuff. Absolutely. I don't think we have any, we don't have any plans to not cover baseball anytime soon. I had fun paying attention to baseball as not the biggest Cincinnati Reds fan that there is. I grew up playing the game and certainly still love it. So love that, UC gives us another option for baseball in town. And I'm sure we will be back talking about it here in the near future as we pay attention to recruiting. I heard that we just signed a quarterback. He was committed to Marshall or someplace, but he just signed for the baseball team to pitch.
Is that the kid from Pennsylvania? I had seen one of the assistant coaches talking about that. He had a big time arm and potential. I never saw who it was.
Yeah, I think
at least for me, you're breaking something.
Yeah, so yeah, he was. If I have my information correct, he was a decent quarterback, threat and recruit, and decided to come here to play baseball for the Bearcats. So good stuff like that in the near future.
Well, I appreciate your guys finding me. You beat the bushes in Twitter to find me, and I popped up, and I appreciate you having me here to talk about Bearcat football baseball, because I really think the more people talk about it, the more it generates excitement. And years ago when I was doing football, it was kind of the same thing. You're talking about it enough, and people start saying, I think I want to go out there and see that. And then once they go out and see it, they keep coming back, and it's been part of the growth of UC sports. But thanks for having me on, and I haven't had a beer in quite a while, so I enjoyed this too.
Well, cheers, Tim. We will certainly have you on again.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Have a good night. Darin, sir, Tim giving us amazing stuff there. I did see on the gram that it was your birthday weekend. Am I right about that?
Yeah, my birthday was yesterday, so I'm 32. So just got back from a nice little dinner with some friends. I had a friend come to town, so we thought we'd meet up with them and, just do some extra celebrating. Also played some golf and, went to some bonfires. So.
Oh, very nice, very nice. I've been, I saw that on Instagram, and I was like, dang, we should have talked about that. So happy birthday officially, and good to see that you got out and have some fun. That's pretty cool you always have like a decent long weekend to celebrate.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was did nothing today to really celebrate, so that's always good for me just to be able to relax and sit around. So.
Sounds good. What do you have anything else that you need to throw our way? I know you were out partying and celebrating your birthday dinner, so no hard feelings there. Certainly get in the good times while you can for your birthday. But I know Tim sent us a lot of good information there. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The one I guess bit of breaking news, not breaking news really, it's just bigger news this week from general football, at least in my opinion, was the tier list for, I guess, money earned for universities to be paid for college football EA Sports. And this is from via like Own3. And so the top tier collectively they're paying it was like $99,000, I think, So the universities, and so UC was in tier 2 for $59,000.
Really?
This is based
I
on
saw that, but I didn't like pay attention to it.
and this is based on the last 10 years of AP poll finishes. So that that fickle era doing a lot of heavy lifting there for us. Obviously, stats only been here 1 year. There's room to improve, but yeah.
So how does that work? So we're in tier 2.
Mhm.
So what is that like? What does that mean, and for who?
So because it's so we finished in the top 25 consistently enough, and then also based on position in those finishes, helps put us into that tier. Obviously,
Where does that money go?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to do some digging to see where that specifically goes. I imagine it just probably goes strictly to the football department via the athletic department.
And like, are they supposed to like spread that out to players?
I wonder if that's the NIL, yeah, specifically.
Okay.
Because that's the payment base. So then that may not be the NIL pool. I think the NIL opt-in pool is different per player. That might just be a general like your university's in this game. This is how much you're worth to be in the game.
Okay.
And, there you go. If I'm reading that correctly. I mean, and no surprises there on the top, the top tier there. You got your Bama, Michigan, Oregon, Notre Dame. I mean, most of those schools almost never dropped out of the AP, the polls.
That's a good point.
And if they did, it was only for a second. So,
I guess the Iowa is like maybe the one that I like squint at for a minute. Like have they been?
They usually. I mean, you gotta think they were usually running the West for the longest, though.
That's true. That's true.
Despite how boring a brand,
and that's really definitely not based on amount of points scored. That's
that's really kind of a recent thing too. If you really think about it, that's the past 10 years. So, basically, from the time they stopped producing the game to the time they started back up. So, because I mean, you got Memphis up there in tier 2, because those Paxton Lynch era teams, and back when they were running the AAC for a bit. No surprise there. There's SMU in tier 3, Georgia Tech, Colorado, surprisingly, is up there. So, and then of course, any school that's just new to FBS is going to be in tier 4. So you got your JMUs, Liberty's done enough damage apparently to jump up, but anybody who's like new within like past like 2 or 3 years seems like they're just at the bottom there.
Nice. That is. I saw people sharing that in the Discord and everything, and I was like, for whatever reason, I was like, I don't have enough time to look into what this is. So I learned that right now because of you. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any surprises on that list there, or do you think people shouldn't be like?
No, like I said, like looking at the top one, Iowa, I gave a side eye. I did pretty quickly look for UCF. They're in tier 2
with us. That makes sense though.
Yeah, for the recency for sure. But yeah, nothing too crazy that I see right now.
Yeah, nothing. I don't think there's any really surprises there at all. I mean, you kind of laugh and chuckle, and it's like you're just like, yeah, that makes sense. They definitely deserve to be down there. Western Michigan being there, I think they're kind of going off those PJ Fleck years.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Air Force just consistently bounces back.
Is he the row the boat guy?
He's the rowboat guy. Yeah. I mean, nothing jumps out that's crazy. I mean, there may be some schools there that have like recent success, but like not enough to like Wyoming. I feel like they should have been in tier 3, but I mean, maybe they just didn't do enough damage at a certain point. So makes you miss some schools from back in the day that used to be in that game that aren't now.
Yeah. I mean, I still play 2013, like I told you.
Oh yeah, so the Kiwi Dome, and Idaho State was here briefly. No, I'm looking forward to it. That comes out in 2 months. So it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. I mean, look at Iowa State down there in Tier 3. Wow. What a bunch of losers.
You're trying to come after you now. Look at that.
Tech, what are you doing? Poverty. Just poverty school. Who else? You throw some shade to the Big 12ers.
I mean, Texas Tech makes sense. They've kind of been middling for a while at this point. So
crazy.
Or had been, at least. They've gotten a little better.
Houston's in the second tier. Good Lord, Texas Tech and Iowa State.
Yeah, no, Houston was doing some heavy lifting too there for a bit. I mean,
yeah, during the Tuberville years. They were.
Yeah, they were eating them. I mean, and then they finished pretty good in 21. So
yeah,
that tracks. Makes you want to really think about what's really Power 5 at that point, right?
Right. Yeah, all the lines are blurred for sure.
Yeah,
who even knows?
Hopefully, we got a 4-star. I'm hoping this is an indication also about how they would rate the teams to a degree, but I don't think so because obviously last year we were not great. So it really depends on overall prestige, maybe, or
Hopefully, there's like an expansion pack or something that gives us the 21 team somehow. Throw 10 extra bucks at it or something, and you can play with Dez and Sauce and
they missed the boat. I'm sure that some of those guys are upset they are out of the game by a few years. So
yeah. Well, they're all they are all in Madden, so they can.
Yeah, they're in Madden now. So it's, I mean, Sauce could have been cover athlete. He could have been up for cover athlete for if it came out that year. I mean, I don't know if we would have guaranteed he got it, but he probably would have gone the Heisman winner though, for being honest. So
in the conversation, at least for sure.
Yeah. So
good stuff. As we sort of transitioned into looking ahead, Darin, our next episode will officially be a June episode. So that means we are here tonight to put season 4 to bed. Good night. And when we come back, we will officially be in season 5. And if people are wondering what does that even mean? It means absolutely nothing except we get a new intro.
Yes.
And we will continue doing the phenomenal things that we have always done on this show. And in June, every week, every episode for the first 4, I don't know how many weeks are in June, but the first 4 episodes of season 5, we'll put it that way, will be the continuing of our Big 12 road trip. And we will talk to the 4 new members, as in Arizona State, Utah, and Colorado. I don't remember which one's up first, but we do have one of them up first, and we will get to know them starting next week in the first episode of season 5. And last summer when I did this, it was a blast, just meeting people like-minded, like you and I, except from a different school. I threw that one question at Tim: what sport would you add if you could? And he was pretty quick to say softball. But that's one question I love to ask our guests on this road trip, and it's kind of interesting to see their responses. So we'll learn all about our new conference mates here starting next week.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't know if you saw that tweet that was posted in a Discord from it was from a Yahoo article that popped up about the 4 corner schools joining.
Oh, the ACC.
Yeah. From actually, I don't know.
The ACC wanted them hard.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was kind of like the Big 12 was there first, and their offer and geography and everything else was just more enticing. But I guess the ACC came in and tried to take them out from under us.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it was someone just talking trash, specifically Utah, trying to make it sound like Utah's above it all, I think.
That sounds on brand for Utah. But man, I'm not going to talk trash until I get to know them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I've seen some of their fans online.
Yeah, I think in the world of college football, there's a lot of schools out there that just had a story at some point and a reason where they excel, or a moment in history where they excelled.
Mhm.
And in recent enough history where a few generations are alive. It's like, oh, Nebraska at one point was a blue blood. Clemson really started getting going back in like the 80s. Just
Florida
really
State.
Florida State.
Plenty of examples.
Yes, so many examples. Plenty of schools that Utah's one of those schools that had its moments where they were a big enough brand to sustain any kind of coach for bid. Obviously, maybe not like necessarily blue blood, but you knew who they were and they had legendary players. I think sometimes when schools like that get going again, it's very easy for them to easily be above it.
Yeah.
UC fans like to talk trash, but we know where like our success really started. So, and our pinnacle was not that long ago, and we're more glad to just have been there and take in being in the Big 12. Obviously, we want to win, but like I said, I think sometimes when you get fans like that, that's why. So
it is.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. Well, good stuff. Once we get that done, once we finish up the road trip, it'll be time to really dive in to football.
Yeah.
It'll be really some good stuff there, and I'm excited to see what the season can be, because I love the Bearcats, no matter my expectations. So we will certainly dive into that after our Big 12 road trip and see if we can't get some people on here to talk some UC football. But I think even if that doesn't happen, I think we'll hold our own no matter what.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
So, well, Darin, you enjoy what's left of your birthday weekend. I hope it was phenomenal for you. I hope everyone online, after watching this, wishes you a belated happy birthday. Next time I see you, I will, a late birthday beer on me for sure. So I know, and then with the move, that might be, who knows when that, I might have to drive that beer to your new house. So we'll figure that out.
I mean, Alyssa and I plan to be at football games at least, because that's just kind of the common sport we share. And then
for sure,
obviously, if there's if FCC does well enough to have some playoff games, I'll try to make those as well. So
they're on a roll right now.
Yeah. So yeah, they are. they're hot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. All right, well, Darin, I appreciate you coming on here after the dinner, and I will see you around the same time next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
Absolutely. Cheers, go Bearcats.
Cheers, go Bearcats.